In the end, everyone turns to Delvin Bertrand Payton to say, what were you doing with a corporate tax refund, peddling it to a man of the cloth? If it was hot coming in, it's hot coming out. Yeah, why was he not able to make it? That's interesting. All this at stake. Sounds sort of like the guy who couldn't make it to deposit the check.
Bishop Phelps and his church were already drowning in debt when a mysterious investor offered a $9 million US Treasury check. Once that check cleared his bank, the bishop immediately transferred it all over town, including paying his personal mortgage. An IRS watchdog alerted to fraud, the banks clawed back all the funds, and now the bishop and his church face foreclosure in 4 days. Was he an unsuspecting victim, or is there a reason his investor is always in the hospital and popped up like a miracle right before Armageddon? You decide. Tell me in the comments. Let's roll news.
It is a very new case, and we are here to talk about an emergency motion for TRO, but it is Bishop Phelps and his church and a couple other entities versus a whole bunch of defendants. There's someone listed as Michael. I think that's the person from ViceStar who allegedly defamed. Is that supposedly the ViceStar employee? It is a Michael, first name only, of ViceStar, who highlighted the issues with this $9 million check. Maria Morrow, I think, is an employee of Renaissance who maybe thought the check was okay. Is that your understanding of who Ms. Morrow is? She hasn't been served, but in general, it's to halt some foreclosures and whatnot. These individuals might be liable in some way down the road. The temporary injunctive relief you're seeking doesn't really directly impact them. Mr. Jerome, I'm happy to hear from you about the relief you're seeking and why. I'm not inclined to provide any relief at this juncture against Renaissance, JP Morgan, Bank of America, Navy Federal Credit, or Truist, because they were only served yesterday. That doesn't mean that we can't have a conversation about them in the next few days, but I need to give them a chance to come up for air and figure out what, if anything, they're going to do. But it seems like we have some of the more central players to this situation present and represented, and at least enough so that I'm comfortable hearing from you about the type of temporary relief that your clients are seeking.
There's a double emergency here. Essentially, the first one is the pending foreclosures that are currently being. The pending foreclosures against the church's 6 properties. The properties that are being foreclosed include the church sanctuary, church daycares, and other vital church properties.
What's the date for the foreclosures?
The foreclosures are scheduled for May 5th.
Okay, next Tuesday.
Yes, next Tuesday.
And what would be foreclosed on is the church building?
Yes.
And the child care center?
Yeah, the church daycare.
Okay.
And then and other church-related properties, and also the bishop's home is one of the properties that's also tied into this. And also there's a risk of operational collapse for the church also, not just of its ministry services, but also its community services, which include the daycare, aftercare that it provides. Essentially, we understand that the bank believes that these were covert transactions, that ViceStar believes that these were covert transactions that took place, but this is not by any means anything covert that took place here. The bishop went and deposited a check. Well, essentially, let me begin at the beginning. The bishop has a project that he was trying to build. He actually sat down with the vice president of ViceStar and discussed the project, discussed them investing in the project, and they basically gave him several affirmations that they would be interested in investing. He just needs to get further along before they can get involved. So they knew that he was doing something. He found this investor that was willing to invest in the project. So the other investor is actually, it's Aflac, Your Honor. The other investor was the Aflac Incorporated.
Meaning the bishop's own company?
So that is not the bishop's company.
Okay, and so we're clear, the Aflac you're talking about is not the quack, quack, duck, reinsurance, whatever Aflac, the one that you and I would think of, just like if I said Ford Motors,
Yes.
you would think of the thing that makes Mustangs and not some company someone created that they called Ford Motor Limited, so it's slightly different. When you say Aflac, are you talking about the quack, quack Aflac?
No.
Or something conveniently, coincidentally, confusingly named the same as Aflac?
Yeah, and unfortunately, that is the case here. It is another Aflac that is named the same as the Aflac. That being said, they did agree to invest in this project. He promised them a certain return. They said that that's fine. And they told him, hey, look, this is the check that we have. The owner told him that.
Who said to whom this is the check we have?
So it was the owner of Aflac at that time that told him that.
Told who?
That told the bishop.
Okay.
That he was sick, he was in the hospital, and that he couldn't essentially conduct any business, and he asked the bishop to deposit the check for him. However, when he went to the branch and he spoke to the branch manager at that time, which was Patrick, he told him, hey, look, this is the better way. He advised the bishop on what he needed to do. He said, this is what you need to do in order for you to deposit these checks. And the bishop followed his direction. And so once he followed his directions, after that, there was the vice president, TJ Chapman, that came in and explicitly said, hey, look, everything's fine here. The funds are clear. Now you guys can release all the funds to the bishop. You can do whatever you want with it. No one ever said to him, hey, you can't move these funds. That being said, when he was notified that there was an issue with the check, or that there may be an issue with the check, he voluntarily came back and gave them $780,000. And then he went to Chase and then got another money order for $1 million to return to them, because they were saying that, hey, look, at first they only said that there was issues with a limited number of payments. They didn't say that there was an issue with the $9 million. They were telling him that there was issues with the payments that he was issuing. And so he believed that it was some issue with him issuing too much money, or whatever the case may be. And he voluntarily brought that money back. Now, with the $1 million, he wasn't able to deposit that money because they had already called Chase, and then Chase had already frozen the account. So even when he brought the $1 million check back, it couldn't be deposited because Chase wouldn't allow him to. Mind you, Your Honor, these are all banks that are all within the same vicinity. They're literally right next to each other. ViStar is on one side of the street and Chase is across the street. They're so close that he never even got in his vehicle. He just walked over from ViStar to Chase, and then there's also a Bank of America there.
So how did the bishop have $1 million at Chase, or had some of the $9 million moved to Chase?
Yes, and so he had transferred some of the $9 million to Chase.
So he was trying to pull some of the $9 million back from Chase to get it to ViStar.
Correct.
And Chase said, we're not going to let you do that.
Correct.
Okay. All right. But it's all tied to the $9 million. It wasn't that the bishop had an extra $1 million hanging out at Chase. Some of the $9 million had moved there, and he was trying to get it back.
Yes.
Okay. And same with the $780,000, it had moved somewhere else, and he was trying to get it back.
That's correct. Prior to that, he had also issued several checks to several mortgage companies, 3 different mortgage companies.
All taken from the $9 million.
All taken from the $9 million.
Okay.
One was QS Private Lending, the second was Surrey, and then the third was South State. Essentially, ViStar contacted all 3 lenders after the checks had cleared with all 3 lenders. Essentially, almost a week after the checks had been sent to the lenders, ViStar contacted them and asked them to return the funds.
But you're helping me understand the general flow. There's the seed money of $9 million, and pretty quickly after it was deposited, the bishop moved it to different places, writing checks, relocating it, et cetera. And then it came to light that maybe that $9 million doesn't have a real healthy origin and it needs to be returned. What was the plan to keep the mortgages current if this angel investor with a $9 million tax refund from 2021 hadn't appeared? Because it sounds like that's the money that the bishop had, was the 9 million from this guy you're not telling me much about, who just magically appeared on the scene. Make it rain, here's $9 million.
I guess in discovery or when the bishop is available, we'll get into it more. He tried to meet with him several times. He texted him, called him, whatever the case may be.
It was whom?
With Devin, with the owner of Aflac. And so he tried to meet him several times. Every time it was always an issue. He was sick. He was in the hospital. He just couldn't meet him in person. He couldn't talk for very long. And then he just, basically giving him limited instructions. And the bishop received the check. He went online. He reviewed it. He has, other members of the church that we contacted to try to make sure that it's legitimate, and all the processes that he took basically came up green, that it was fine, that there was no issue here. So
if there is an issue, let's just assume for a minute there is an issue. So not suggesting that the bishop knew, him suggesting probably should have wondered why this guy out of the blue said, here's $9 million, but that's for another day, like you said. Assume for a moment that Mr. Payton, Delvin Bertrand Payton, improperly, I'll use a mild adverb, improperly acquired that check. And he shouldn't have had that money. That means that he gave something to the bishop that wasn't his to give, and it could be taken back. Not the bishop's fault. Yes, the bishop's problem, and isn't the bishop's claim and your various other clients' claims against Delvin Bertrand Payton, and not the banks that are saying, here comes TIGTA, here comes the feds, and they need this money back. We're going to do what they say. There are some very unfortunate collateral impacts on your clients, but in the end, everyone turns to Delvin Bertrand Payton to say, what were you doing with a corporate tax refund for which you have no tax return, and you're peddling it to a man of the cloth? Discovery will reveal the actual connection between Mr. Payton and the bishop, but assuming your version of events, which is this man appears through the mists and says, I have $9 million for all the good things that the church does, and I want to give it to the church, then the bishop was just trying to keep moving things forward. The unclean hands are this mystery man who could never quite make it to the phone or to a business meeting and had a mystery medical ailment, but said, don't worry, it's a good check. I don't want to be the one who walks into a bank to deposit it, but if you do it for me, I would be much obliged. It sounds like your client's a victim, at best, of this situation, but that would mean everyone else who touched the check beyond that is also a victim. ViStar getting it, Chase getting money that was moved from ViStar from that $9 million. How are they not also someone who was duped by Mr. Payton? Your client may be a victim also. We'll see. Well, let me hear a little bit from some of the other parties. Mr. Bell, I'd like to start with you. I have reviewed the affidavit and pleading that you filed in record time. I know, and this applies actually to Mr. Michaelov and Ms. Tuttle as well. This is all new to you all, so I'm not expecting you to say, hey, I've researched this and that, et cetera. What's not new, it sounds like, is the concern around the $9 million check. I'm less worried about the interactions the bishop had. Someone may well have said, great, thanks for the check. We look forward to working with you. If the check's no good, the check's no good. Or I should put it differently. If it wasn't Mr. Payton's check to give to the bishop, then there are problems. And that money needs to go where it ought to go, probably the real Aflac. Because I am sensitive to Mr. Jerome's observation of, well, if things have been locked down and the bishop couldn't get to other funds, if the only funds he ever put into ViStar were the $9 million, I'm less troubled by where we are right now. But if the bishop or his businesses had other accounts that aren't commingled with the $9 million, but he can't get to those funds, then there may be some work I need to do in the short term so that he does have access to those funds.
Well, let me clear up something,
Please.
factually, Your Honor.
Yeah.
On January 22, the Aflac Inc. account was opened
So it's actually an account in the name of Aflac Inc.?
Correct.
Okay.
That account, the owner is Delvin Payton, but an authorized signer is Bishop Phelps. Okay, so he was involved. The complaint says on January 22, plaintiffs deposited the check, being Mr. Phelps. We verified in the affidavit, he's involved. He's involved in opening the account. He's involved in depositing the check. He's involved in moving the funds around. I'm not sure there's a distinction at all between Bishop Phelps and Aflac Inc. He's an authorized signer. He opened the account. He was there. So was Mr. Phelps. Mr. Phelps, my understanding is he was there when the account was open. He wasn't mysteriously had an ailment, and all of the money was moved out of the account within days.
Okay.
So
All 9 million moved out within days, not just some of it.
correct, Your Honor.
And when you say within, if the account was open on what day did you say?
It was opened on January 22. I don't have the exact days, but as we put in the affidavit, it was all moved to, again, entities associated with Bishop Phelps, all moved.
Okay, and those entities, accounts associated with Bishop Phelps, were those pre-existing accounts at ViStar?
My understanding is that some of them were, Your Honor, but for instance, there was an allegation that with respect to the church, there might have been, funds in a church account that were really funds, from tithing and, Sunday. The account at the church was open on January 27, 2026. Mr. Meredith testifies he has looked at the account statements. He believes the only money in the account is the transfers.
So I want to make sure I process that correctly. The church's account at ViStar was basically open at the same time as the Aflac
A
account.
little bit, a few days later.
Okay, it's not, let me ask it differently. Are you aware of any aspect of the bishop's businesses having a long-standing relationship with ViStar? Or it was, hey, we're going to open up some accounts at the same time as Aflac's account opens up. And then Aflac is drained and the church accounts, the bishop's accounts are filled.
My understanding is, Your Honor, and I'll ask Mr. Rollins to jump in. He was dealing with this longer than I have. Carmania and Auto World Autos was a pre-existing account.
Okay.
Those business accounts pre-existed.
But not the church accounts.
Not the church account. That was after this money, this Aflac account was
Okay, so to my point of, well, hey, if he had $1 million already at ViStar in a church account, isn't there a way to segregate that, give him access to that to meet the needs of the church? The answer is no, there was no account prior to the Aflac account opening. And so what's in the church account came from the Aflac account.
Once the fraud alert came on, then we contacted the IRS, said, can you reaffirm that this check is good? They said it appears to be fraudulent the same day. And the next day they sent us the email explaining what they had found out and saying, freeze the account, get as much of the money back from everybody that wired out the account. And we've specifically been following the IRS instructions. And you can tell from the check, Your Honor. I mean, I don't think you need to be an expert to look at the check and say, Aflac Inc. was formed by Mr. Payton in 2024. It has now been, I would say, it appears to be flagged by the Georgia Secretary of State. And now, if you go to the website, it says, quote, under investigation for the status, which I've never seen before.
Right, but it's a refund from 21.
Correct. So it is a refund from 3 years before it existed.
Understood.
And it has a huge amount of interest as well. So all of the taxpayers, you, me, everybody in this room, everybody around Georgia, we're all getting cheated because it looks like they've taken funds from the Treasury that may belong to Aflac, or, Your Honor, Mr. Rollins is actually a tax attorney. This is a scam that some people run. You file a fake tax return, you act like you're the person, you file the tax return, and you get the check, and you say, hey, Aflac's at this address, not that address. I don't know if that happened or didn't happen, but this is a common, unfortunately, this is a common scam that some people run.
I don't think I need to, for today's purposes, resolve the bishop's knowledge because of that last point you made, that if it was stolen taxpayer money coming in, it's still stolen taxpayer money. It doesn't matter how unaware, ignorant, ill-informed, well-intentioned, and believing that here's someone who wants to support the church. That doesn't make it non-stolen money. If it was hot coming in, it's hot coming out. And it sounds like the IRS is focused on getting it back.
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay, got it.
Role in this whole soap opera started in 2025. In March of that year, they made a $1.2 million loan to New Faith Christian Church. It was a one-year loan with interest-only payments and a balloon at the end.
Oh, so it ballooned a couple months ago.
It ballooned on April 15th of this year.
Tax day, how ironic. Okay.
So the full amount is now due. They received payments, they didn't receive payments, they got late payments. It was a relationship fraught with a lot of questions about whether they get repaid their money or not. My clients received a wire transfer for $1.2 million on February 9th.
So they paid it off.
Well, had the wire stood, they would have come close.
Got it. Now I see the connection.
But the wire didn't stand. The wire was put on hold by my client's bank on February 11th. My client informed Bishop Phelps by email on February 11th that they had received a call from their bank's fraud department regarding the wire you sent us. The IRS flagged it as potential fraud. So the funds were put on hold, and we do not have those funds currently. Which the bishop responded, "Good morning. This is the next day. This is on February 13th. I'm doing my best to keep you all in the loop. I can assure you that we have done nothing fraudulent, illegal, unethical, immoral, or unbecoming on our end. If you aren't comfortable, you can have your bank send the wire back to Chase. I assure you that litigation will be filed against any financial institution that is accused of fraud."
I'm here on behalf of Shri LLC. Shri LLC is currently seeking to foreclose on 3 different loans, Your Honor. As you can tell from everything that's been argued so far, what I've never not heard is anything that my client, Shri LLC, has done wrong or is even being accused of doing wrong, other than foreclosing on loans that were not paid. We have 3 loans, Your Honor. What happened in our case, Your Honor, is that these loans were already behind on January 30th. Or by mid-January, they were already late for the December payments on these loans. We did try to foreclose once before. The bishop has had numerous communications with my client, threatened to have media come and make him seem like a bad person for foreclosing on church property, et cetera. They did pull it 1 month to try to see if there could be something done. But at this point, Your Honor, even if you take every statement that is in the plaintiff's complaint is true, nothing has alleged that my client has done anything wrong other than wanting to be paid on his loans. He is being financially harmed now by this. He has not been paid for months. He has got loans that are in default, but at the end of the day, we start where does the line get drawn? My client's already pulled it once, has paid attorney's fees to pull it once, and now it's not willing to pull it again. At this point, we do wish to go forward. We do not believe there's been anything shown here today that would give any reason to stop these foreclosures.
Circle for me, please, to Ms. Tuttle's point and Mr. Michaelov's point, which is, hey, he may be having financial problems, but he hadn't paid our loans. We haven't done anything wrong. We didn't say anyone committed fraud. We didn't say anything about Aflac Inc. We didn't say anything about the IRS. We just weren't paid. And our contract with the church, with the homeowner is, if you don't pay this mortgage, we can accelerate and we can foreclose.
The bishop was not here. He would like to testify himself.
And why was he not able to make it? That's interesting.
So he had
All this at stake.
and
He sounds sort of like the guy who couldn't make it to deposit the check.
Your Honor, and I understand that. I actually was under the impression that we would have this hearing earlier in the week. We did file this last week, but, and so I'll take the blame on myself because I did inform him that it would be okay if he was traveling today. But then when we found out the hearings today, we informed him, but I mean, he already had his travel plans, so.
He's not going to testify virtually, and that was Mr. Jerome's good point, that he hoped that maybe he'd get testimony from the bishop, but we're not going to do virtual testimony with the stakes as high as $9 million. It really seems like it boils down to the plaintiffs are unhappy with what ViStar did, and it had the ripple effects as ViStar complied with directives from whether it was TICTA or IRS or whomever. And I think there's an acknowledgement that QS and Shree, they haven't been paid. They're entitled to foreclose. It's the but for. They would have been paid if only ViStar hadn't meddled with the $9 million. All right. Happy Friday, everyone. Mr. Jerome, good work pulling all this together on short notice. We will be in touch.
Vlad.